Hi,
Good day,
everyone.
everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Once again, thank you for joining our podcast on Borders and Beyond. As we all know that 2025 has been a special year in the sense that we see conflicts breaking out everywhere, whether it was Operation Sindoor, whether it's Russia trying to bomb Poland now. And we also saw regime change happening in Nepal and protests in France. But something else that happened is that Israel decided to bomb Qatar to try and take out the Hamas leadership. So that is what we're discussing today, and Chaco is going to present us his points of view as to what is happening. So, Chaco, so what's happening these days?
Oh, nothing much, AK. I mean, we live in interesting times, don't we? I mean, it's
We
it's
do
funny. I mean,
definitely.
it's like it's very hard to keep on top of things. I mean, even to decide on the topic was a bit of a hassle, wasn't it? We had to kind of narrow it down very quickly because there's so many things happening, and you're like, what do we talk about? Uh, Look, I know that you're also pressed for time in the sense you're trying to leave for India very shortly. And we had to squeeze this one in very quickly. But what we're going to do is obviously to all our listeners and our members and our subscribers, we will endeavor to bring more episodes coming through, but it will all mostly be done by Zoom because AK will be in India and I'll be in Australia. All right, now let's get to the Doha bombing. As you all know, there was a bombing on Tuesday, September 9th, in Doha. It was carried out by Israeli jets. They were aiming to decapitate Hamas's leadership. And sadly, they didn't get the Hamas leadership. They ended up getting a whole lot of bodyguards and a couple of Qataris, or maybe one Qatari at the end of the day. So the suspicion is that just before it happened, they were tipped off that something was going to happen, and what they did was they parked all their mobile phones in a particular area, and that's the area that they got hit. So the basic gist of it all is now who tipped them off, right? And that's the thing. But the global implications are much more serious because uh, you know, Qatar has been playing a big role in many negotiations across the globe, and they're doing a larger than life, they're having a larger than life role in any conflict related things. They've been brought in to come and mediate, and so it's quite interesting because the United States Central Command is in Doha. And so that's barely 30 kilometers from where this thing happened. So nothing happens across Qatari airspace without Central Command knowing about it. So they knew about this. There's no question about it. No matter what the United States says, they didn't know anything. That is BS. That is complete BS, because the Central Command. I mean, any activity happening in the Persian Gulf is monitored by the Central Command, which is right there, in Doha.
Just the way
So
the US allowed Iran to drop in a few bombs in Qatar a few months back as well.
correct. Yeah. So that was all, that was again theater, right? Everyone said, all right, I'm going to do this and then just move your people and do that, right? But I mean, before I get into the crux of this, as the global implications of this, let's just talk about some of the things that has been leading to this, right? During the Kosovo, the Yugoslavs war, the United States bombed the Chinese embassy. Uh, and look, from historical times, and let's just talk all the way to the Greeks, the Romans, you name it, one of the fundamental rules of war was that you don't go hitting the negotiators, you don't go hitting ambassadors, you don't go doing that. That's just not on, right? This is something that has always been there, and it's been the rules of the game. I mean, if you started doing that, as you know, either the French and the English always had their problems, and they always still. the kings were always having the issues. But if you start assassinating their ambassadors or their special envoys, then all trust breaks down. So there was an understanding, and it's not just an understanding of 10 years ago, 15 years. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? That you don't go hitting ambassadors, you don't go hitting negotiators, you don't go hitting special envoys. It's not on, right?
So,
What
but
we're
this was
doing
the
now,
leadership, sorry to interject, but this is the Hamas leadership that they were targeting, right? Hamas
correct?
wouldn't
Yeah.
mind taking out Netanyahu or the defense minister or anybody from top as well. So, how different is that from this?
Well, they haven't, right? I mean, they flew a drone into his as close as possible and said, "We can get you," but we didn't, right? They did do that, but there's a more important fact here. Let's I'll get to it, and then you understand why this is becoming a problem. So they did the bombing of that Chinese embassy. Nothing really happened. Yes, the Chinese were really upset about it, but it was deliberate. And then obviously, not too long ago, there was the Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria just before the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. And then there was the assassination of Qasem, what's his name? Qasem Soleimani. Now, this guy was actually invited. Now, he's actually a member of the Iranian government. It doesn't matter what you want to classify him as, but he was a member. And he was carrying a diplomatic passport too. And then he was invited by the Iraqi government. He landed in the airport, and he was taken out by a missile that was fired by a drone from the United States. Now, here is the thing with these continuous escalation and decapitation strikes that they're conducting, like what they did with the Yemenis, right? Killing the prime minister and everything. Look, everybody can play these dirty games. This is not it's not as if nobody can play. They can all play these dirty games, right? So in this specific case, Hamas's head office in Qatar was the Qataris actually got them there simply because the Americans asked them to bring them there, right? And say, okay, they can have an office. It was similar to the Taliban. Taliban had an office there. They wanted to negotiate, so they brought in. They asked the Qataris to step in, allow Taliban to have an office there, right? And similarly, they asked the Qataris, okay, step in, allow Hamas to have an office. If the Americans had said no, we don't want these guys in there, they wouldn't have had them there, right? Now, the second aspect of this was there was supposed to be a discussion on a ceasefire proposal that was put by Witkoff, right? So the Americans actually had sent a document and said, we want you to comment on it, right? And we want you to participate in it. So this was actually, basically asking them, all right, come together, do this. But this is the second time that the Americans have done this, right? They did it with the Iranians, and they killed off the negotiators. The Israelis killed off the negotiators. Now there's this problem. The implications of this are quite. I mean, let's park Hamas for a second, right? Hamas shuttles between Turkey and Qatar. The reason they come in from Turkey to do the discussions, but they all stay in Turkey. Turkey is a NATO member. If Israel conducts an act or they conduct something similar there, right? Turkey can call in Article 5. Now, if Article 5 is invoked, they all have to do something called collective defense. Now, if they don't do it, then that's the end of NATO. Let's park that one aside, right? Because then that means, well, hang on a minute, what's the point of all this? I mean, like, we got attacked, right? Everyone knows Hamas's offices are there in Turkey, in Istanbul, and they shuttle to Qatar to go and have the conversation, and then they shuttle back. Yes, they do have offices there too, but that's purely for that negotiation part of it. Second part of it is the entire Middle East, since since time immemorial, had bet with the United States. They said, all right, you give a security guarantee in return, in return, we will obviously do everything in dollars, but that was one part of it. That was the oil deal. But we also want securities, right? So you will guarantee our security and we don't have to worry about anything else, right? We will have the money and no problems. Whenever you want something, well, we can get it organized for you. As you can imagine, Qatar is the one that gave him a $400 million plane, palace on wheels, palace in the air, and and apparently the emir has a personally very good relationship with Trump. Now, the implications of this is quite serious because if the U.S., which guaranteed its security, did not secure them, the Saudis have a similar situation. The UAE has a similar situation. The Kuwaitis have a similar. The Omanis have the same thing. Everybody in the Gulf GCC has some kind of a security pact with the US, and this has just thrown it all into the bin because right now, as you know, and I mean, me and you have dealt with in our lifetime dealt with a couple of Arab guys before. They don't take insults very easily, and they don't forget insults very easily either. They are quite open, but if you insult them, they don't take it very easy. So basically, what's happened here now is the U.S. knew this was happening. They didn't protect it. A Qatari citizen is dead. They didn't even were not even made aware that it was going to happen, and there's been a bombing. So that's that security implication aspect of it. The second
Mhm.
aspect of it is if this can happen to Qatar, who is a major US ally, non-NATO. The one rung below NATO is where Qatar is, Central Command. That's where everything happens. Literally everything happens, right? The whole Persian Gulf and everything else is monitored by these guys there. If they can't even get their security guaranteed by these guys, I can assure you those guys in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE are going to start wondering, who do we go to next? And this is where the situation gets really, really tricky. So for
So who do you think
so
they
many,
would go out to if not the US?
so this is where it gets the Chinese can exploit this, and they can. They can literally exploit this.
But
There's
the
no
Chinese are
question of,
not known to come out and defend or protect. The army outside China rarely moves out. When was the last time China had a war? That was again probably against Vietnam in the late 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
70s, I think, 70s, I think
And
is when it
then
happened.
again recently when they have a base in Djibouti, they did nothing much with regards to the piracy. They are more to themselves. They are more into business, right? All they can think of for the Chinese usually go for business deals rather than military deals.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can
look,
supply you weapons. They will supply you weapons, but would they put boots on the ground? I don't think so.
look, this is the thing, right? This is an unknown thing. Yes, you're right. 5,000 years of history between India and China. We are known for not being aggressive, and in fact we are known for being having an amnesia. Every time we fight a war, we all pretend that okay, it's happened, it's fine. 30 days later we all try and pretend that let's go and play cricket with Pakistan kind of a thing, you know and 5,000 years, this is something we both us and the Chinese are not known for going out there and being present,
Yeah.
but
And the other one would be the Russians. The Russians are too embroiled in their own war at this point in time. So if let's say if the Ukraine war was not there, yes, then Russia would have been a good fit. But at this point in time, I don't see anybody else fitting in that bill other than the US. They don't have a choice.
I think they do. They do. See, the boots on the ground is not really that important, to be brutally honest. I mean, look, Central Command has what? Enough troops, but it's not enough to manage the whole of the Persian Gulf, right? It's not.
Or would it be
Uh,
the Iranians that would then provide security to the Middle East?
well, there's the Qataris have an agreement with Turkey, right? In fact, when the GCC blocked Qatar off, and there was a suspicion that the GCC or some of the troops, there might be military action against them. It was the Turks that stepped in and said, "You can't do anything to these guys because we'll fight you guys." So there is a close relationship between Qatar and Turkey.
Yeah,
However, I
Turkey
think,
itself is a NATO nation and it can't do much without the US's go ahead, can they?
yeah, correct. And you know,
So it
uh,
is as good as having the US provide them security.
correct. Yeah, well, to some extent. But look, the thing is, at the end of the day, what is a security guarantee if it is useless? Look, at the end of the day, what is the point of a security guarantee if you don't do anything about it, right? You got attacked, sovereign country, doesn't matter, and you said, yeah, well, that's it. So what's the point of it? I mean, it might as well not have it. You think you had it, but it wasn't worth anything. It was not even worth the paper it was written on.
Yeah,
So
but
the
again, one thing again, what you need to keep in mind is that just before the attack happened, I think the night before,
mm,
Trump had issued an ultimatum to Hamas to release the prisoners.
yeah, but he has been issuing ultimatums to Hamas for
Yeah,
a
but you
long
never
time.
know what happened to him at that point in time, where he just decided to say, "Okay, go, let's teach them a lesson," kind of a thing.
Yeah, but you don't call in. See, this is where I'm going with. If you're going to call in negotiators, right, and say let's negotiate this, and then you hit the negotiators, then there's no point having this conversation. Because I can tell you right now, like if this continues in the direction it's going, let's park Israel for. If this continues in the direction it's going, what will end up happening is that it's only a matter of time before countries start taking actions, right? So, for example, the Canadians some time ago thought actually banned Indian generals from traveling to Canada because they call them war criminals, right? It's only a matter of time before they start saying, okay, fine, let's start whacking them also because they're all terrorists, right? So everyone starts. It's the law of the jungle. If then the Americans decide that, okay, well, we're not very happy with, but because at the end of the day, what is Israel saying? It's that our national security is threatened. What did the Americans say? Their national security is threatened, right? So if they come in and say tomorrow, right, our national security is threatened, well, in this particular case, let's take, for example, what's currently happening off Venezuela, right? Our national security is under threat, so we are going to take action. And they do a decapitation strike on Venezuela, which is more than likely possible now.
Yep,
More than likely,
it
okay?
was always
They do,
on the in the pipeline.
on the card. So then it doesn't matter whether, like, Maduro or not. But that's the guy who is the president, right? You don't go assassinating presidents and saying, so then what we're going back to is the good old colonial system, right? We're going back into the colonial system where for the British to turn up in India, they basically said that we're going to teach the Indians how to be, civilized,
Hmm.
right? And so, they set the agenda and then they execute on it and they don't
Yep.
care, right? So this action, what will end up happening is that if the United States tomorrow says we don't like India because India is acting against U.S. interest, and that the Modi government is no longer a friendly government, what do you think is going to happen?
So they're already doing it, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. So
look
that's
at
what the
Brazil.
implication.
They don't like the Brazilian government, so they sanction them. They don't
Exactly.
like the Indian government, they sanction them because they don't listen to them, right? So that is where we are at. The other thing that I wanted to come and ask you about was, in the 70s and 80s and the 60s, we had all these
Hmm.
international bodies that were supposed to resolve disputes and all.
Hmm.
Those bodies don't seem to be relevant anymore in the new geopolitical situation because all the countries are doing as they like.
Yeah.
Nobody listens to
I mean, we're,
anybody. I
we're,
mean,
we're we're talking about the
The
UN and
Security Council, the
Security
UN Security
Council.
Council keeps passing resolutions. People ignore them. International Court of Justice will come and say something, and people just give them the thumbs down. You have WTO, World Trade Organization. They say things, people don't listen to
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
So it is like we are heading for a general breakdown in the world order.
Hmm. You said WTO, UN, and what was the other one?
Security Council, International.
ICC?
Court of Justice here.
Yeah, okay. Let's address each of them. So the WTO, the World Trade Organization, was something that was set up, obviously to
Or
manage trade
WHO for
disputes.
that matter, or the World Environment Council, whatever it is that we
Yeah.
have in place.
Oh,
And
look,
nobody
look,
listens
let's,
to those guys anymore, right? So they're just there. Who listens to
yeah,
United Nations these days?
correct. Yeah, there is a problem. And I mean, look, the UN was set up after the end of the Second World War, right? And they realized the problem because before that was the precursor to the UN was the League of Nations, right?
Yeah,
And they realized the League of Nations had no power to do anything. And so they thought, all right, let's kind of fix some of these things and we'll have some permanent members who will have stake in this and then we'll try and resolve things. And it worked to a lot of extent until the Soviet Union collapsed.
yep,
With the collapse of the Soviet Union, then America said, well, we are the only power left. We are a hyperpower. Nobody can challenge us. So what we say is the go, right? And what ended up happening was the United States started acting outside the norms or the West in general. So when I talk about the US, I'm talking US, and then obviously its minions, it's the EU and any of these countries. But you look at what happened in Serbia or Yugoslavia, it wasn't a UN sanctioned action, right? They did it unilaterally. So the breakdown started to happen once the collapse of the Soviet Union happened. And basically, what it meant was that it then became a situation where the US and its allies would set the rules, but the rules were meant for others, but not for them to follow. And if the rules
mm,
didn't suit them, they changed the rules. So all of a sudden, it went from where you went from a body to where they said they were the hyperpower and we set the rules to then them ignoring the rules and saying,
yep,
well, that rule doesn't suit us anymore. So all of a
hmm,
sudden, you don't know what you're following. So they're changing the rules as it goes along. You know this rule. You know what happened in India. The British will come up with a rule. It doesn't suit them. They change it, right? And
yeah,
you're just like, and they say, well, this is the new rule now
hmm,
because it suits them. So that's basically where we're going back. We're going back to a situation where, well, we'll set the rules and we'll change the rules, but the rules are for you, the minions, not for me to follow. All right.
yep.
And if the rule doesn't suit me anymore, that's bad luck. I'm doing my own thing. And that's exactly what WTO was. WTO was something for free trade. Everyone negotiate and be fair about it. And you have an independent person sitting there trying to make sure that everyone is playing on a level playing field. So the Americans said, we don't want anything to do with this.
You remember Animal Farm? Some animals are
I
more
haven't
equal
read
than
that
others.
book.
But I'm sure you've heard this statement before.
What is
Some
it?
animals are more equal than others, and basically
Correct.
that is what is going on in the world, and that is why you see all these the Western powers, the major powers,
Yeah,
refused to they were rather equal among equals.
correct. And I'll talk about the ICC, in the International Criminal Court. Um, this was set up, no joke, and you can go and check it out. This was actually set up to try mostly Southern leaders, right, and the leaders of the South, as Africans and Asians and everything.
Now, it
And it
was
wasn't meant
basically
to.
to try the Germans and the Nazis, right, after the Second
No,
World War.
no, that was the Nuremberg trial. So I'm talking the ICC.
So it is
ICC,
just part of an extension of that. Probably they decide to take it
No,
up,
no,
right?
there's a Rome. It actually came out of the Rome Statute, right?
Right.
The prob. So how did it get all become problematic? Was when the ICC was forced to take action against Netanyahu. Right? They were
Hmm.
happy to do one against Putin, and everyone
Hmm.
was cheering and saying, "Great!" But the moment they did something about Netanyahu, guess who came in and said something? Guess who blew the lid on it? Lindsey Graham. And what did he say? He said, "We didn't set up this court to try the leaders of the West, and including Israel. We set this up for the other people." That was his statement. That was, you can go and check it. He actually said it. And this is the problem because, again, as you said, it's like Animal Farm. There are there are different animals, and some animals are, more important than the others,
Yep. I mean, I
right?
could think of a couple of American presidents that could have been tried for genocide.
Absolutely. Hey, look, every single
G.W.
American
Bush
president, yeah,
and a few
you know,
others.
it's really, really telling. I'll give you an example of how bad this situation is. So you remember the invasion of Iraq? We both know this,
Yeah.
and you know the person Madeleine Albright, right? You've heard of her. So Madeleine Albright was interviewed on 60 Minutes, and she was asked a very straightforward question, right? She said, the I think it was a 60 Minutes. I can't remember his name. And he asked, "Is the death of 500, and this was a conservative number, by the way, 500 Iraqi children worth this war?
For
The
what?
U.S. going in and
For weapons of mass destruction that didn't even exist?
correct, yeah." And you know what she said?
Uh,
She said yes.
so she
So
should have.
500,000 Iraqi children didn't matter. But here you are screaming on top of your head about what Putin is doing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this double standard, I mean, everyone can see it. None of us are stupid, right? That's why they said, look, geopolitics is a very, very cruel game. It's an extremely cruel game. So nothing is fair. I mean, I have friends of mine talking about sovereignty. Sovereignty, can you believe it? They said, "Oh, Russia, you know, basically attacked a sovereign country." Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not as if this is new. I mean, come on, let's be honest. I mean, like,
Democracy, freedom, sovereignty are all big words when it applies to other people, but when it comes to you,
I mean,
you
like,
just very conveniently start ignoring them, right?
I mean, they went and did it on Iraq. Let's even forget Iraq. Let's even forget anything. Look at what they did to Libya. Me and you know this. Look at what they did to Libya. Look at what.
Libya was
Okay, pa,
almost a first world country at one time, Chaco. They were
exactly.
much better than the Europeans themselves.
What happened to sovereignty then? Then what
And
happened to
and and
sovereignty?
see where they ended up now. 30
Here's
years
another
after
one.
the war. They're still there.
They're having human slave trade there now.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is, and they don't care. So this is it. I mean, like you talk about sovereignty. I have friends who are talking about sovereignty. They say, look what happened to Grenada. Remember the invasion of Grenada by Ronald Reagan? Remember the
Yep.
invasion of Panama by which was it Bush or one of these guys?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
like
it was Bush.
sovereignty. Yeah, it was sovereignty. What happened to sovereignty then? This nonsense talk about sovereignty. How did the British end up in India? I mean, we
So,
were a
Chaco,
sovereign country.
we were going to talk about this thing last week. We
Anyway, yeah.
mentioned that now that we will definitely go back to that. It is a very wide topic where we can start analyzing probably region-wise each of the times the West has gone in the name of freedom and free
Mm,
people. So as if the other people are bonded laborers. Did you think that people in USSR were bonded laborers? I,
absolutely not.
I knew, or the Chinese, they had their own free will. Did everything what they like. I don't think they would have been any different of what the Americans do or the West does, right?
100%, dude. I mean, did you see? Tell me something. Me and you came from Africa. Did you find any Russian colonies there? I mean, like any of
No,
the countries were colonized by Russia?
no.
No.
I was in Ethiopia. It's during when they were having a war with Somalia. You
Right.
you'd be surprised. 1 week before America was with Ethiopia, and the Russians, the USSR at that time was with Somalia, and then like musical chairs, within a week they switched sides. You got the Americans supporting the Somali, and then you had the Russians supporting the Ethiopian army, the Ethiopian government. And
Right.
before long, you saw the Cubans come in, and then the Russians also came in, and they continued the fight for Ethiopia. So, and then it was like it was like a joke, man. Musical chairs.
It is. It is. I mean, let's be honest. Who look in this current world? we're looking at, right? I mean, we'll come back to the implications very quickly. I know we've got how much time have we got left?
I think we have another 5 minutes or so, so we can just wrap
Uh,
up. We will then catch up again probably over the weekend or
yeah,
a
let's
little
let's
later
catch
in
up
the
over the
week
weekend to
once I
continue
am
this.
back there. Yep,
Yeah,
and then we can have
sorry,
another conversation.
sure. I'll quickly talk about. Let's quickly talk. Look, you remember when we were all in Nigeria, and there was the ANC issue, and the West was busy supporting the racist government there, right? And the ANC was considered a terrorist organization. Now, tell me something, mate. I mean, me and you know each other very well. We actually studied with a couple of South African guys who were ANC guys, right? You know pretty well that if this situation continued today, right, they'll be looking to assassinate all these guys. And if Mandela was there and all those guys were there,
Yep,
Joe Slovo, everybody, they would have all been gone.
they'd have taken out each one of them,
Right?
and it's not as if
And
they did not try at that time itself.
yeah, I mean, so
So
let's,
short of eliminating them, they kept them locked up in cages for years and years, for decades.
exactly. So this is the thing. So again, coming back, you look, historical precedence basically says you don't go assassinating negotiators and ambassadors. You don't do that. Because if you start doing that, you're going to lose any form. Right now, there's a credibility problem with the United States now. United States security guarantees are worth says we're calling for a meeting. Let's negotiate. Nobody's going to turn up.
Yep.
Who's going to turn up? Who knows whether this guy's going to just decapitate you? In fact, do you know what? When Putin turned up in Alaska, there were a lot of things going around, and people saying, "Why is he doing it? He could get decapitated there." But the reason why he turned up there is because the Russians said, "If you do that shit, we're going to fucking finish you off too." Right? So
In
there
the
was
good old
they
days,
had,
you people used to go to Geneva for peace talks
oh, well, the
because
Swiss,
it was a neutral country, right? I guess it was for the same reason.
exactly. There's no more
Everybody
neutral
went to
country.
Geneva for whatever reason, and then suddenly people stopped going to Geneva anymore.
Because yeah, because Switzerland is no more neutral.
Yep.
It's no longer neutral. So how do you? We need to create a neutral country so everyone can go there and feel safe. But then
Mm.
that means everyone has to go. This is the problem of this is again we're coming. We'll talk about this in the sense the West is declining, and they're going to go down fighting, and they will play dirty. They're
Yep,
going to
we're
really
getting to
play.
that stage now, and we see that happening all around us.
Yeah,
And I think with that, Chaco, we'll decide to close it at a date for today.
yeah.
Uh, To the audience, please like us, subscribe, and do add in your comments and provide your feedback. And tell us what other things would you like to for us to talk about.
Thank you,
Chaco, anything
everyone.
from
Yep.
you? Your closing
Yeah.
remarks?
No, that my closing remarks is basically we are living in an interesting times. Literally every day things are changing. This is a situation that it has repercussions, and we'll continue this conversation. Look, me and Chowdhury don't agree on a lot of things. You guys all think we might agree on a lot of things. Yes, we do, but a lot of things we don't agree on. And you're going to sometimes see very fiery debates between me and AK. But that's fine. That we are friends. We've been friends for 40 years. We can walk over this. So what I'm trying
Talk.
okay, all right. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is that you might disagree with people, but it's always good to have that conversation. There's no point fighting over things, right? Let's have a conversation. Doesn't matter. You don't have to agree on everything. But the fact of the matter is, me and Chaudhry are mature enough to know, yes, we're not going to agree on everything, but we still remain friends. And the idea behind this podcast is to say, and this is to everyone listening, you will disagree with friends of yours or family members. But that's just a conversation. Let's all open our minds up, listen to different perspectives.
Yeah, that's
But
something in the world today where everything is toxic. Even simple conversations become very toxic. Go to Twitter, go to Facebook, put in a comment, and see how people hound you down for what you've said. They
exactly.
don't
And
listen anymore, right? I think we need to have more of a dialogue and try to understand the other side
absolutely,
and where they're coming from. So with that,
absolutely.
Chaco, we'll call it a day. Thank you
Yep.
all.
Thank you very much. And for everyone, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. As again, I would say subscription doesn't mean you're paying for it. You're just telling the algorithm you're interested in our content. And we'll continue this conversation in the next couple of days, simply because we're doing this over Zoom. Yeah, let's take it from there. Thank you, Chaudhry.
Thank you all.